This is Jessica Bowman judging for the Show Your Heart Out Virtual Horse Show number 3. This is the Senior Showmanship. And second place in our class is Doreen. So do a pretty nice job getting this horse to trot off with us a little bit past that cone B. We want to stop with our body at cone B. We had a couple penalties in the pivot because the horse is moving their pivot foot. That's one thing to really work on. If you can get that horse to plant that pivot foot and reduce those penalties, you're really going to see the total score rise in a pattern like this. Otherwise, nice trot in the arc and finish to the stop. She has a nice straight back up with her horse. We kind of went into the pivot kind of before that horse had really stood back up and stopped backing. And I think that affected our pivot again a little bit here. We had some penalties with the stepping out. Comes in really nice and straight to the judge in both her trot and her walk. I'd like to see her kind of bring that left hand up, be even with the right hand, show a little bit more confidence in that part of the pattern, not just when we stand up to show for inspection. She has a good setup on this horse, nice and square. And make sure too, as we're crossing over, that we're checking our horse before we glance up at that judge. The basis of the showmanship is to show your horse, have the ability to show your horse at halter. And in a halter class, you'd be paying attention to your horse, making sure they're very square, they're not moving a foot. So that is part of showmanship as well. As you, anytime you cross over, kind of glance down, make sure your horse hasn't moved a foot, and before you glance up at that judge. Okay, and he does stick his pivot in this last 90. However, he does pivot on the left hind. And while that's not incorrect, it's not going to be as credit earning as a pivot on the right hind either. And our first place in this class is Belinda. Steps off into her trot very nice in this pattern. Nice pivot. Little bit doggy in the trot up, but maybe only by a step. I think one thing I'd like to see with this pair is see just more forward motion, see our exhibitor lengthen her stride a little bit, have the horse lengthen their stride. That's going to increase the degree of difficulty and just add some smoothness and consistency to this pattern, increasing the scoring overall. Really nice straight back up. Pretty good pivot. This horse is a little doggy in the shoulder, so that could be something to work on, just making sure they keeps his shoulder and keeps his spine in alignment all the way through that pivot. Comes in really nice and straight to the judge in both her walk and her trot. Like to see our elbows come in just a tad. Really quick on the setup. That's very credit earning. It's also a really quality setup. This horse is very square. Does a really good job in her inspection, paying attention to the judge. She's checking her horse before looking back at the judge, which I like to see. A nice finish to her pattern.